Hello and welcome to Between the Keyframes, where I discuss cartoons, animation, and all good things between. I am here at the Decatur House in Washington, D.C. This house was built in 1819 by Commodore Stephen Decatur, who was famous for its naval conquest in the War of 1812. This house was designed very lavishly at the time, but unfortunately Stephen didn't have much time to enjoy it as he was killed in a duel a year later. That's all pretty cool and all, but what does this house have to do with cartoons? Well, allow me to paint a very thin and shallow picture for you. Years later, this house became an inn, and who would walk through those doors but none other than the famous English novelist Charles Dickens. After his trip to the US, he would return home to England to begin writing his most famous work, A Christmas Carol, the wonderful story about Ebenezer Scrooge transforming from a selfish sinner to a celebrated saint. And one can imagine that perhaps the Decatur house could have been inspiration for Scrooge's dark and dreary mansion. Now, this book has been translated and adapted in many different ways, but one of my favorite adaptations is the Disney cartoon classic, Mickey's Christmas Carol. But there is a problem. I'll go inside and warm up, tell you all about it. So, Christmas needs to be saved. More specifically, Mickey's Christmas Carol needs to be saved. This film is in desperate need of preservation, and hopefully what I am doing is going to encourage Disney to do it right. Right now, the two best copies of this film that you can find is either on the limited edition DVD set called Walt Disney Treasures Mickey Mouse in Living Color Volume 2, or the 30th Anniversary Blu-ray. The DVD is in low resolution. It shakes so much I get vertigo just trying to watch it. And then there's the Blu-ray. Oh boy. In 2013, Disney released the 30th Anniversary Blu-ray. The shakiness is gone, but in its place, we are given a film that has had so much digital noise reduction that it looks like a soupy mess. And on top of that, Disney decided that we would rather have the top and bottom of the film removed so it can fit onto our widescreen TVs. This is not film preservation. This is film manipulation. You deserve to view this amazing film as it was when it first hit theaters. So, if Disney isn't going to do it right, then I will, as best I can. I have been on a quest to find Mickey's Christmas Carol on film so I can get it digitally scanned myself. I am here today to tell you that I have succeeded. I have acquired a very nice 16mm print of the film. I sent it out to Cinelab and had them perform a 2.5K digital overscan of my film with sound. The standard Blu-ray has a finished resolution of 1920 by 1080. My film has been scanned at a higher resolution, 2560 by 1920. And as you can see, this scan covers not only the film, but bits of the frame above and below. It also includes the sound wave pattern on the sides. And if I were to crop in and only reveal the film frame itself, we're at a resolution of 1900 by 1340, nearly matching the Blu-ray resolution side to side. But because I've also kept the top and bottom of the frame, I get an additional 260 vertical pixels compared to the Blu-ray. If Disney wanted to, they could scan one of their 35mm prints at 8K without digital noise reduction and put out an amazing 4K release and treat this film with the respect it deserves. But until then, I currently claim to have the best copy of this film, and you will see clips of it exclusively here. This film was released in 1983 and is perhaps my favorite version of A Christmas Carol. The deep rich colors, the atmosphere, the humor, it's just amazing. When I first saw this as a kid, I was enthralled, excited, terrified, and overjoyed. It was the first large ensemble cartoon I ever saw where nearly all my favorite Disney characters appeared. With top-notch artistry, animation, and voice work, this film deserves its place at the top of Disney's catalog. I am so excited to revisit this fantastic film from my childhood. I remember watching it on my family's small TV next to a fireplace, wrapped in a blanket with a hot chocolate in my hands. It just gives me all the perfect Christmas feels, so let's go. The film opens up to beautifully painted title cards and a wonderful Christmas song called Oh What a Merry Christmas Day, composed by Irwin Kostal, who is best known for producing the score of Mary Poppins. Though a little long for an intro, it definitely sets the mood to a wonderful Christmas movie. In our first shot, we pan down to see Ebenezer Scrooge walking through town carrying a sack of all things. I never paid much attention to that sack, but I recently learned that this depiction of Ebenezer Scrooge is based off a painting from a 1960s little golden book called Donald Duck and the Christmas Carol. It's where we find Scrooge carrying a sack full of money. But in this film we learn that he's not carrying money, but he's carrying his laundry through town just so he can throw it at Bob Cratchit. Right off the bat, we're shown how mean of a person Scrooge is. He rejects giving money to the poor, praises Marley for being good at being bad, and then is proud of himself for cheating his friend's last dying request just to save some money.
And I had him buried at sea.
Once inside, he begins to berate Bob Cratchit for wanting to warm up his ink using a single piece of coal for the fire. Bob, then asks for a half day off Christmas, to which Scrooge begrudgingly allows, then tosses Bob his laundry to clean. This scene really dives right into how horrible of a character Scrooge is, and how money has become the love of his life. He would go on to berate and assault his nephew,
Now out!
and shrewdly reject the charity workers asking for donations, making it seem that if he donated, he'd put them out of a job.
Don't ask me to put you out of a job, not on Christmas Eve.
It's getting dark and the snow is whipping up. Scrooge makes his way through the cold to his unlit home. He makes his way to the door, and the knocker transforms into the image of his fallen partner and scares him silly. Up the stairs, our first real gag occurs, where we get a classic shadow stalking routine, ending with Scrooge running in fear to his living room. While cowering behind his chair, he comes face to face with the specter of his former partner, Jacob Marley. The tension suddenly gets cut when we realize that though this is Jacob Marley, he is still played by Goofy, and we get a good dose of slapstick humor.
And so as punishment, I'm forced to carry these heavy chains through eternity. Maybe even longer.
A warning and a way out is given to Scrooge. Either he listens to the three spirits that will visit him that night, or face the same unfortunate fate that has befallen Marley.
Your chains will be heavier than mine.
Quite scared, but also not quite believing what he saw, Scrooge goes to sleep.
Humbug.
But just as Marley said, a visit from the spirits had begun, and we are introduced first to the ghost of Christmas past.
Oh, I thought you'd be taller.
After a bit of banter, they fly out the window, and in a bewilderment, Scrooge is taken to a Christmas party at a place he used to work.
Spirit, I believe I know this place. Yes! It's old Fezziwig's.
Here he is shown how he used to be nice as his younger self, being pursued by the lovely Isabel.
Ebenezer,
Yes, Isabel?
I'm standing under the mistletoe.
You're also standing on my foot.
But as time moved on, Scrooge became so taken with money that he foreclosed on his fiance's house for being an hour late paying the mortgage, thus breaking her heart and thrusting him into perpetual loneliness. Feeling remorse for the first time in a long time, Scrooge begs to be taken home.
I can no longer bear these memories. Take me home.
Remember, Scrooge, you fashioned these memories yourself.
Foolish. Why?
Back in his bed, contemplating what he had just witnessed, a brilliant light and a giant eyeball spooks him silly. Enter the ghost of Christmas Present. Here, Scrooge debates the giant on the merits of generosity. The ghost of Christmas Present wants to prove that people in this world can be good, even to Scrooge.
You'll see.
They then leave the house in a very creative way and makes their way to Bob Cratchit's house. Here, Scrooge sees how his overworked and underpaid employee lives, and how much little food they have, and how also Bob has a son, Tiny Tim, who is unwell, yet the boy still thanks Scrooge for providing wonderful things to eat, though there's actually very little.
Oh my! Look at all the wonderful things to eat! We mistake Mr. Scrooge.
Scrooge grows concerned for the boy, and you can really see his heart drop when he realizes that the boy might die. Suddenly the lights go out, and Scrooge is alone. Smoke envelops him as he stumbles into a graveyard. More smoke pours around him as he encounters the most fearsome spirit, the ghost of Christmas Future.
Who are you? Are you the ghost of Christmas Future?
Without a word, he shows Scrooge what becomes of Tiny Tim by pointing at the top of a hill. A mournful Bob places Tim's crutch at the foot of a headstone, confirming that Tiny Tim will die. Suddenly, there's a commotion going on by two gravediggers. Curiously, Scrooge and the ghost appear by the open grave. Scrooge questions whose lonely grave it is. The ghost of Christmas Future strikes a match, revealing Scrooge's name. He then pushes Scrooge into the grave. He scrambles and claws at the roots to get away. Scrooge then loses his grip and falls into the coffin that is spewing fire. Ebenezer's life of darkness leads him to his grave, but there is hope. It reminds me of the Bible verse, John 1:5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So, there is a happy ending. Scrooge wakes up having fallen off his bed. He is not burned and not dead. He is quite ecstatic to be alive, and he is now truly a changed man. He rushes out in his dressing gown and coat and finds the charity workers and gives them a ton of money.
Well, bless me. Good morning, gentlemen. I've something for you.
He finds his nephew, and to his surprise, lets him know that he'll be coming for dinner. And now the best part. Scrooge purchases a ton of toys and puts them in a sack just like his laundry bag. He rushes over to Bob's house and begins to prank him. While gruffly knocking on the door, Bob answers it.
Why, Mr. Scrooge! Merry Christmas!
And Scrooge barges in, demanding that Bob do another load of laundry. However, Tiny Tim discovers the ruse, and Scrooge confesses, giving Bob a raise and making him his partner. Scrooge is truly a changed man. We end as we begin, with that wonderful Christmas song and a beautifully painted end card.
And God blesses everyone.
It had been over 30 years since Mickey Mouse starred in a feature film when Mickey's Christmas Carol debuted in theaters in 1983. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Short and featured the very last performance of original Donald Duck voice actor Clarence Nash. It also featured the debut of Mickey Mouse voice actor Wayne Allwine. It was directed by Bernie Madison, who also worked on The Sword in the Stone and The Black Cauldron. And in great Ebenezer Scrooge fashion, when Bernie pitched the idea of directing Mickey's Christmas Carol, the head of the studio pretended to be angry and hate the idea before revealing that he actually loved it. I've really enjoyed making this video. I've put a lot of time and money to bring you something truly unique and interesting, and I hope that one day Disney will bring out a proper 4K release of this film, uncropped and unmodified. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'm Justin Owen, and this is Between the Keyframes. Merry Christmas, and may God bless us, everyone.